The judge looked me straight in the eye and said, "We're ready to make a ruling." My stomach dropped. I couldn't breathe. My hands clutched the table so tightly, I felt my nails dig into the wood. I thought this was it. I thought I was about to lose my son. Then, out of nowhere, my 6-year-old son, Theo, stood up from the gallery. He walked to the center of the courtroom, holding a piece of crumpled paper he had folded into his Spider-Man backpack that morning. His voice was quiet but clear. "Your Honor," he said, "I want to read something." The entire courtroom froze. Not a single sound, not even a shuffle. All eyes turned to him, this tiny boy in an oversized navy sweater, standing in front of a judge, gripping a letter with both hands like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stared at him, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. What he said next changed everything. "My name is Jessa Carter. I'm 33 years old, a freelance graphic designer, and the mother of a little boy named Theo. He's 6. He likes dinosaurs, peanut butter on everything, and sleeping with the lights on. He has my eyes and his father's quiet, steady way of watching the world." Before everything turned into a nightmare, our life was simple. Not perfect, but simple. We lived in a small 2-bedroom house on the edge of town. The rent was manageable, and the backyard had just enough space for a sandbox and a rusty swing set I bought secondhand. It wasn't much, but it was ours. Aaron, my husband, Theo's father, passed away 2 years ago in a car accident. It happened on a rainy Tuesday. I still remember what I was cooking when I got the call: chicken stir-fry. I never made it again. For a while, I wasn't sure how I was going to function without him. We'd been together since college. He was the first person who ever made me feel safe. I didn't just lose my partner that day. I lost the future we had dreamed of together. But I had Theo, and somehow, that saved me. The days after Aaron's death blurred together. I was grieving and exhausted, but I kept showing up for Theo. I'd wake up, pack his little lunchbox, walk him to kindergarten with a brave face, then come home and cry into a pile of laundry. He never saw me break down. I made sure of that. He needed strength, so I became it. We got close, closer than ever. Theo would curl up beside me on the couch with his favorite blanket and whisper things like, "Don't be sad, Mommy. I'm here." He never said much, but he didn't need to. We had our own rhythm, our own way of healing together. And then there was Margot, my mother-in-law. From the beginning, Margot never approved of me. She thought I wasn't polished enough, not from the right kind of family. She once told Aaron in front of me that I was a good-hearted girl who should have stayed in her lane. Aaron always brushed her off, said she'd come around. She never did. After he died, Margot inserted herself into our lives with a quiet kind of persistence. At first, I thought she was grieving too, that maybe she just wanted to stay connected to Theo. I let her visit. I invited her to birthdays, school recitals, family dinners. But her comments never stopped. "You let him stay up too late. He needs more structure. He doesn't need all this emotional coddling." She'd sneer when I tucked Theo in with a bedtime song or when I let him choose his own mismatched clothes. I could feel her judging me, silently, constantly. One afternoon, I found her in the kitchen offering Theo a brochure for a private prep school. I hadn't even heard of it. When I told her we couldn't afford that right now, she didn't miss a beat. "Well," she said, stirring her tea, "some environments are just better for children. Not every mother understands that." I said nothing, but I started setting boundaries, limited visits, clear rules. That's when things turned cold. She started questioning everything: my job, my finances, my parenting. One day, Theo came home after spending a weekend with her and asked, "Mommy, do you think I'd be happier living with Grandma?" It felt like someone stabbed me through the chest. I knew then that this wasn't about love or support. It was about control. Margot didn't just think I was doing it wrong. She wanted to take over. She saw an opening, and she took it. 2 weeks later, a thick envelope arrived at my door. Legal papers, custody hearing. She was trying to take Theo away from me. When I opened that envelope and saw the words, "Petition for custody," my hands went numb. I sat on the floor of the kitchen, the letter crumpling in my grip. Theo was watching cartoons in the living room, completely unaware that his world was about to be yanked out from under him. The petition said Margot was requesting full custody of Theo, not shared, not supervised. Full, she claimed I was emotionally unstable, financially insecure, and incapable of providing Theo with a stable environment. There were entire paragraphs where she painted me as a grieving wreck who couldn't manage to dress my child properly, let alone raise him. The worst part? She wasn't entirely wrong. Yes, I was grieving. Yes, I had moments where I cried in the shower or forgot to fold the laundry, but I showed up for my son every single day. I fed him, hugged him, helped with his homework, kissed his forehead when he had nightmares. I was his safe place. And now someone was trying to tell the world that wasn't enough. I called Lena, my older sister, who drove over within the hour. She read through the papers twice before saying anything. "She's playing dirty, Jess, but you can't let her win." I hired a public defender because I couldn't afford anything else. He was kind but overworked. His advice was mostly, be calm, be respectful, document everything. He didn't inspire confidence. Meanwhile, Margot had hired one of the top family lawyers in the county, someone who specialized in high-profile custody battles. I started keeping a journal of every interaction. I dug up Theo's school reports, pediatrician notes, photos, teacher emails, anything that showed he was healthy, happy, and safe. Every night after Theo went to bed, I sat on the living room floor surrounded by folders and printed emails, while reruns played quietly in the background just to keep my mind from unraveling. And then there was court. The first hearing was procedural, but it was enough to scare me. Margot sat there in her navy blue suit, looking like the CEO of some corporation. She smiled at Theo when he walked in, but her eyes were on me like a hawk watching a wounded animal. Her lawyer was polished, confident, and knew exactly how to twist small facts into damning character flaws. "She has no consistent income," he said. "She works from home, barely. She has no family nearby to assist. She suffers from anxiety and is still visibly grieving her late husband. We believe Miss Carter, while well-meaning, is not emotionally equipped to provide what Theodore needs long-term." I wanted to scream. I wanted to stand up and shout that none of those things meant I was a bad mother. But I stayed still, like my lawyer told me, calm, respectful. Back home, Theo could sense something was wrong. One night, after brushing his teeth, he asked me, "Am I going to have 2 homes now?" I didn't know what to say, so I lied. "No, baby. Mommy's just working through some grown-up stuff. Everything's going to be okay." But deep down, I wasn't sure. Margot started pulling more tricks. She called Child Protective Services, an anonymous tip. Someone had claimed I left Theo alone during the day. A caseworker showed up, unannounced, while I was in the middle of a client Zoom call. Theo was building Legos at the kitchen table in his pajamas. I answered every question, gave her a tour of the house, and offered to provide contacts for Theo's teachers and pediatrician. She left politely, but her presence lingered like smoke in the air. The next night, I locked the door and cried into the laundry basket. That week, Theo drew me a picture. It was a stick figure version of me and him, holding hands, standing in front of our house. A speech bubble floated above my cartoon head. "I love you more than everything." I hung it on the fridge and stared at it for a long time. I didn't know how this would end, but I knew one thing with every cell in my body. I wasn't giving up. Not on my son. Not without a fight. The night before the final custody hearing, I barely slept. I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of cold tea, papers spread out around me like armor, emails from Theo's teacher praising his progress, notes from his pediatrician about his healthy development, drawings he'd made at school. I even printed out the flyer from the local library's Mommy and Me reading hour that we went to every Tuesday. I wanted to be ready. I needed to show that Theo wasn't just surviving with me. He was thriving. Still, doubt kept crawling in through the cracks. What if the judge saw me the way Margot did? What if they thought grief made me weak? What if being emotional, being gentle, being honest somehow meant I wasn't fit to be a mom? Lena came over to help me prep. She brought snacks I didn't eat and a folder of old photos she thought I could use. Theo's 3rd birthday, his first day of preschool, a selfie of us baking cookies with flour all over our faces. "You have everything you need," she said gently, placing a hand over mine. "You just have to let them see who you really are." Later that evening, after she left, I found Theo sitting cross-legged on the floor in his room, writing something on a piece of lined notebook paper. "What are you working on, buddy?" I asked, kneeling beside him. He looked up, his eyes serious in a way that didn't belong on a 6-year-old. "I'm writing a letter," he said, "for the judge." I paused. "A letter?" He nodded. "Just in case they don't know how much I want to stay with you." I felt my throat tighten. "Theo, that's very sweet, but it's okay, Mommy," he said quickly. "I won't say anything mean about Grandma. I just want them to know what it's like to be with you." He folded the paper into quarters and slipped it into his backpack. "I'll take it with me, just in case." I didn't know what to do with that. Part of me wanted to tell him no, that it wasn't his job to fix this. But the other part, the one that knew how smart and gentle and deeply feeling my son was, just nodded and hugged him tight. The next morning was cold and gray. Theo wore his favorite navy sweater, the one with the little dinosaur patch on the sleeve. I braided his hair back into a little bun like he liked and packed an extra snack just in case. We sat silently in the back of the courtroom waiting. Margot arrived in a designer coat and patent leather heels. Her lawyer walked in with a briefcase that looked more expensive than my entire wardrobe. I tried not to look at them. I focused on Theo's hand in mine. When the judge called us forward, I stood with my lawyer and took a deep breath. Margot's attorney went first. He spoke about financial stability, routine, and the benefits of a 2-parent household, which she could simulate, apparently, with a live-in nanny and tutors. He implied that my home was a place of chaos and emotional fragility. I kept my face neutral. I thought of Lena's words, "Let them see who you are." When it was my turn, I spoke calmly. I told the judge about our routines: school, homework, bedtime stories. I showed evidence of Theo's progress, his friendships, his comfort and security. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just told the truth. Then, just as the judge leaned forward to close the hearing, Theo tugged my hand. He stood up, stepped out from the bench, and walked forward slowly. "Your Honor," he said, holding that same folded piece of notebook paper. "Can I read something I wrote?" The judge blinked, surprised. "You wrote something, son?" Theo nodded. "Yes, sir. It's for you." The room went completely silent. Even Margot looked frozen, unsure of what was happening. The judge looked at me, then back at Theo. "All right," he said. "Go ahead." Theo unfolded the paper, smoothed it on the desk in front of him, and cleared his throat. Theo stood there, small and steady, holding that piece of paper like it was made of glass. His voice didn't shake. "My name is Theo Carter," he began. "I'm 6 years old. I like dinosaurs, grilled cheese, and playing with my mom. I want to live with my mom." The courtroom didn't move. The judge leaned slightly forward, hands folded under his chin. Theo looked down and kept reading. "My mom gives me hugs when I feel bad. She makes pancakes on Sunday and lets me pour the syrup, even when I spill it. She laughs when I tell her jokes, even the ones that don't make sense. When I have a nightmare, she lets me sleep in her bed. She calls me her heart." My throat closed. I felt my eyes burn, but I didn't dare blink. I didn't want to miss a second. Theo kept going, his little fingers tightening around the paper. "Sometimes we miss my dad and we cry together, but then she tells me stories about him, and we light a candle and we say good things. She says it's okay to be sad and okay to be happy again, too." He paused, looked up at the judge. "I know Grandma loves me, but she says my mom is too soft. I think soft is good. I don't want to live somewhere that doesn't let me feel things. I want to live with the person who lets me be a kid." He folded the letter carefully and looked around the room. Everyone was still. Even Margot had lowered her eyes. "I just thought you should know," he added quietly. "Thank you." Then he turned and walked back to me, slid into the seat beside me, and took my hand. I wanted to break down, but I couldn't. Not yet. The judge was still watching us. He sat back in his chair, silent for a long time. You could feel the tension crackling through the room like static. He finally spoke. "This court acknowledges the statement given by the minor, Mr. Theo Carter. While we typically avoid placing children in the position of testifying, it is clear that his words were his own and that they reflect a deep emotional clarity. I find them compelling." My heart leapt, then froze. Compelling wasn't a ruling. The judge turned to Margot's attorney. "I've reviewed the petition and supporting evidence submitted by Mrs. Langston and her legal team. There is no documented abuse, no medical concern, and no professional testimony suggesting that Ms. Carter is unfit. The court does not believe that financial disparity alone constitutes a reason to remove a child from his mother, especially not when the child's emotional well-being appears stable and clearly bonded. Margot opened her mouth to speak, but the judge raised his hand. Furthermore, he continued, the child has expressed a sincere and articulate desire to remain with his mother. That carries significant weight in this decision. He turned to face me, his expression softening. Ms. Carter, this court finds that you are fit to retain full legal and physical custody of your son. Visitation arrangements with Mrs. Langston may be discussed through mediation, but the court sees no reason to pursue permanent removal of custody. For a moment, I couldn't move. It was like someone had just lifted a 2-ton weight off my chest. My legs felt like jelly. My hands were shaking, but I reached over and pulled Theo into my arms. He clung to me, wrapping his arms around my neck the way he always did when he needed to feel safe. Only this time, it was me who needed it. Margot didn't speak as we walked past her. She sat stiffly, her jaw clenched, her hands white-knuckled around the handles of her purse. I didn't gloat. I didn't even look at her. I just kept walking, holding Theo's hand as tight as I could. We stepped outside into the sunlight. It had warmed up just a little. Theo squinted and smiled up at me. Did I do okay, Mommy? I knelt down and kissed his forehead. You saved us. The day after the hearing, the house felt different. Not because anything had physically changed. Theo still woke up early and dragged me into the kitchen to help him make cereal. The furniture was the same. The smell of lavender from the candle we always lit during breakfast was still floating in the air, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I had fought for my son, and I had won. That morning, I found his letter, the one he read in court, taped to the refrigerator with a dinosaur magnet. He had written his name at the bottom in red crayon and drawn a tiny heart next to it. I stood there for a long time, reading it again, line by line, until my eyes blurred and I had to sit down. He had written that for me, not because I asked him to, not because he thought it would help me win, but because he saw me. He felt our bond, and in his own little way, he stood up to protect it. We went out to the park that afternoon, just the two of us. I let him stay on the swings way too long and bought him an ice cream even though dinner was only an hour away. When we got home, he asked if we could call his dad's old number and leave a message like we used to. I held the phone to his ear as he whispered, Daddy, the judge said I get to stay with Mommy. I was brave, just like you. I couldn't hold back the tears that time. I think people underestimate what kids understand. They think being young means being unaware. But Theo knew. He felt the tension. He saw the stress on my face, heard the whispered phone calls, noticed the nights I lingered too long by his bed. He picked up on everything, and still, he chose hope. He chose love. We met with a court-appointed mediator a few weeks later to discuss Margot's visitation rights. It was tense, but civil. I agreed to supervised visits once a month, not because I wanted her in our lives, but because Theo did love her in his own way. And I didn't want to teach him that love had to come with hate attached. She never apologized. Not for the custody suit, not for the lies in court, not for trying to dismantle the life I built, but that no longer had the power to break me. I realized something important through all of this. Being a mother doesn't mean being perfect. It doesn't mean having the biggest house or the best job or always knowing the right answer. It means showing up, even when you're exhausted. It means putting someone else's needs above your pride, your fear, and your pain. It means giving love freely, even when you're not sure it's enough, because to them, it is enough. There was a time when I thought being soft made me weak, that if I cried too much or held Theo too tightly, I'd be proving Margot right. But now I see it differently. Soft doesn't mean weak. Soft means safe. Soft means strong in the places that matter most. Theo taught me that. I sometimes still wake up in the middle of the night, worried the court ruling was just a dream. I tiptoe down the hall, peek into his room, and watch him sleeping. Legs tangled in the blankets, mouth slightly open, one arm hugging his stuffed tiger like it holds the secrets of the universe. That's when I exhale. We're okay. More than okay. We're whole. If you're a parent or you've ever fought to protect someone you love, you know what this feels like. You know the panic of being powerless and the fire it lights inside you. You know what it's like to be underestimated, dismissed, and told you're not enough. But I hope you also know that your love matters, even when it's quiet, even when it's questioned. And if no one's told you today, you're doing better than you think. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone you love or something you've had to fight for, I hope you'll take a moment to like this video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need a little hope today, someone going through a custody battle or just trying to hold their family together one day at a time. And please, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your story. Have you ever been told you weren't enough? What did you do? How did you rise? Finally, if you want more true, powerful stories like this, stories about strength, love, and the moments that change everything, subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss what's next. Thank you for being here, for listening, for caring. From one heart to another, take care of yourself and hold on to your people.